if you receive that information on a regular basis, you actually become quite comfortable with thinking about what can happen, because you know that you will know what to do in that situation. The information gives you agency, which seems to be what the UK government has realised. If you don't exercise and learn from the exercises, then you will have to improvise when a crisis happens, which is exactly what happened when COVID struck.
Now Britons will soon be advised to stockpile food, water, medicine and wind up radios under a major new government blueprint to prepare the nation for war. The multi-day simulation, dubbed Operation Elbiston Shadow, will see ministers and hundreds of civil servants test the UK's response to a hybrid attack by a foreign adversary. Let's speak to Elisabeth Braw now, Senior Fellow with the Atlantic Council's Transatlantic Security Initiative at the Scowcroft Center for Strategy and Security. Elisabeth, a warm welcome. Good to have you with us.
It's a pleasure.
Describe a hybrid threat, just for those of us beginners.
A hybrid threat is something that doesn't rise above the level of armed military violence. And I have to say, hybrid is not a good word. Grey zone is a much better word. So in other words, an attack or activity that takes place in the grey zone between war and peace. And it can be anything from cyber attacks to sabotage to arson, which we have seen in the UK, to disinformation campaigns, election interference. And the problem is that those kinds of activities are proliferating and are being directed in increasing number against the UK and other Western countries. So it's a good thing that they are receiving more attention now.
OK, and this resilience campaign to be launched later this year, this is directly aimed at households. It is something actually prevalent in plenty of other countries. We've not done it here in the UK, and I don't know whether that is sort of putting our hands over our ears and shouting la la la, or whether there is a case as they actually do not alarm people. But nonetheless, it's on the way. What kind of advice are Brits going to be getting?
Well, so the first thing to say is that this kind of advice, telling people what to do in a crisis, what kind of items to have at home, it's something that earthquake zones have done for a long time. This is how I myself became familiar with it when living in San Francisco many years ago. And as you pointed out, the UK has been reluctant to provide this kind of information. They have put it on the government website, but you would have to go to gov.uk to find it. But what will happen now is that the information is going to be proactively shared with the public. And the reason that the UK government has been reluctant to share this information is they thought people would panic. Well, I'm here to tell you that if you receive that information on a regular basis, you actually become quite comfortable with thinking about what can happen, because you know that you will know what to do in that situation. The information gives you agency, which seems to be what the UK government has realised. And so it will tell people what items, food and non-edible items to have at home. For example, blankets, torches, a radio that doesn't need to be charged and so forth, and how to know when a crisis is unfolding.
The announcement comes, the Times reveals today, a week after officials quietly held a major wartime preparedness exercise in which Russia, so this was a simulation of course, Russia hit hospitals with missile strikes and shut down traffic light systems. What can you tell us about Exercise Turkana?
Well, I can tell you, I wasn't there, so I can't tell you any juicy details, but what I can tell you is that it's great that this exercise took place, and as you say, it simulated helping or making society, ensuring that society can keep functioning in case of major disruption. And that really matters, because if you don't exercise and learn from the exercises, then you will have to improvise when a crisis happens, which is exactly what happened when COVID struck. Now with COVID, we had the advantage that it wasn't a hostile attack. It was just a pandemic, and it was difficult enough to handle then. And so it's good that the government, a wide range of civil servants, have practiced and hopefully will continue to practice hostile scenarios, because when if and when such a scenario or a similar one occurs, they will know what to do, and we won't have to improvise.
Yeah, there's a little bit of detail here in the Times article. So this exercise began with cyber attacks on health and critical national infrastructure. A crisis phase involved a surge in casualties, while Russia simultaneously degraded the system's ability to respond. There was an armed hot conflict in Europe, where NATO's mutual defence article was invoked, with the UK drawn into direct involvement. Participants covered a 2-week period. They modelled 600 casualties within the UK, mostly injured in attacks and road accidents. A further 600 troop casualties from the war in Europe. They all required medical attention across the country. So you can see the kind of detail that goes into this. And this is only good news, really, I suppose, as we hear more and more about the concern of how, well, the UK's lack of readiness should we come under attack, or should we as a NATO nation have to get involved in a war, Elisabeth?
Yes, and so as you outlined, there were several scenarios, interlocking scenarios in that exercise. We don't know how well the UK did in
That's true.
in responding to these various scenarios. That's what I would love to know, because the point of an exercise is learning, discovering the gaps in your preparation and preparedness. Unfortunately, I think you and I, Kait, will be left out of those classified details, but the participants will obviously know what they are and will be able to plug the gaps. And the point is that you can test several and exercise several scenarios, and it doesn't even matter whether the scenario that you've exercised is the one that eventually comes to pass. What matters is that you have exercised your response. You know who to contact. And I can tell you, just very briefly, when Sweden did a total defense exercise in 2020, the key thing that the participants found out was that they didn't have all the phone numbers they needed. Because if the internet goes down, you need to call people on the telephone.
Good point, indeed. Elisabeth, it's great to speak to you. Thank you. Elisabeth Braw, who is Senior Fellow with the Atlantic Council's Transatlantic Security Initiative at the Scowcroft Center for Strategy and Security.